Yes, Alias Investigations is open for business, and so is Hogarth with no associates. And wait a minute. Was that a Hellcat sighting? The Jessica Jones After Show starts now.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Yes, welcome to the Jessica Jones After Show. I'm Krysten Bladt. Happy that we have at least one more Marvel Netflix series to go through. Joined by my great panel. Say hello, panel.
Hello, panel.
Hello. How's it going?
We can introduce yourselves
Okay.
too. That's kind of what I meant.
I am April Dawn, and I'm excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. And
I'm Adam Gertler, and I am becoming the regular go-to guy for the lame duck superhero shows, as I've also on the Swamp Thing After Show.
oh man,
That's how they bring me in.
Yeah.
Like the fixer.
you're the cooler, like in Vegas. If
Yeah,
the table's
exactly.
too high, it's like this show's doing a little too well. Let's go ahead and put Gertler down there on the end
Yes.
and make sure that we don't get it anymore.
But no, as a for the most part, I've been a huge fan of the Marvel Netflix experiment.
Yes.
Like way more than like the ABC or ABC Family versions of those things. I really hope that this last one goes down with a great series and is a complete story, and then I will be satisfied. You know, the noir nature of this show lends itself to like a nice complete story. So I feel like more so than with Daredevil, which really hurt me. I feel like if Jessica Jones sticks to season 3 landing, I think it could be a really nice ending for the Marvel Netflix experiment.
And just really quickly, I want to ask each of you, April, how did you feel about season 2 of Jessica Jones? Because it is not a lot of people's favorite, and there were some criticisms. So, sort of going into it, what were your feelings on season 2 and expectations for season 3?
I liked season 2 a lot more than most people did. I really liked the family dynamic, and I actually think it was on par with the first season. I know that's a hot take, but
That is a hot take,
Yeah.
by the way. Yeah.
I'm really excited for season 3, and I hope they wrap it up nicely.
What did you think about season 2, Adam?
I think I was not as big a fan of season 2. I have to say I found it slow, and I didn't really like the family stuff as much. Also, I've finally come to terms with the fact that David Tennant is my man crush. Having just seen Good Omens, and yes, the Doctor Who stuff and this and Broadchurch, like that was just so perfect. And I read the Bendis comic when it came out, which the first arc of Alias was all about like the Purple Man, and so it was like the only Jessica Jones story I knew, which it was a new character. That was the funny thing. When he wrote this character, he wrote it and sort of retconned her into the Marvel universe, right? Like he said, like, oh, she'd been around, she'd been an Avenger, and that was a really cool thing I never really saw done before.
Yeah, it's the interesting thing is because they wanted this character to be Jessica Drew, who had been Spider-Woman, and then they didn't want to let them do that. So then he came up with a creative way to have it make sense. So that's why you'll see some similarities in their backstory.
So in the original like Max series, like when they came out with
Before
those,
they actually sat down to write it, it was like, so I want to do this to Jessica Jones, and they were Jessica Drew, and they were like, no, thank you.
That is so
which would have been
cool.
amazing if
I did
that's
not
what
know
happened
that.
to
That's
Spider-Woman.
great.
Yeah, but anyway, they took. For season 1, and yes, for the Bendis comics, they took the Purple Man. Look, honestly, not a great character, and they made him awesome, and just terrifying, and so well done. And I think season 2 probably suffered because of how good Kilgrave was. But in general, I liked it. You know what I liked the most about it is I like how much Trish we got, because
A lot of Trish.
Yeah, I'm definitely team Trish. We had a little of her music video last season. I mean, who's not going to love that? It was a cray cray, as she said in the. But I think it was a little bit. I was a little bit disappointed, but in general, I like. If you want to talk about hot takes, I like both seasons of Iron Fist. In general, yes, I know. In general, I have enjoyed all of this, and coming to an end, yeah, that's sad. But when you think about it, even though I would love more Daredevil, we still got 39 hours of Daredevil. Which, if they had been movies, we'd have maybe 6 hours.
Yeah,
at this
I want
point.
more.
I do too. I do too. But I'm just saying, I'm appreciating what we have gotten.
And April and I were talking, and I think we both kind of felt, or at least I felt that, like, Daredevil was that one that really worked on this limited budget.
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't have him swinging on his billy club like Spider-Man, but maybe that's too much like Spider-Man. So I really was like pretty on board with Daredevil top to bottom every season. I thought that was the most consistent, greatest one. I will say that this new season of Jessica Jones starts off great. I love kicking it into gear with that familiar noir, I'm on a case kind of thing, with the narration and all that. I'm like, we're back in this world, and I was very happy to be there right from the get-go.
Yeah, when we start off and she's, on the case on the beach, and I'm just like, she's dressed like Jessica Jones, of course.
She loves that shade of denim.
And I was just like, I was just excited. I'm like, look, I've been looking forward to this season ever since I knew there was going to be a third one, especially when we found out this was going to be the last Marvel Netflix show. And then I just like, being thrown right into it. I'm like, oh, this is great. This is why I like her. Even if, season 2 wasn't my favorite, I always liked her. She's always great. So just to have her like, yep, I'm still doing my thing. I got some issues surrounding myself as always, but just seeing her right back in the thick of it, I agree with you, Adam, on that. What did you think? Just seeing Jessica on screen again, Krysten Ritter inhabiting this character again.
Yeah, she is this character. I absolutely love her portrayal of it, and I love the way the season kicks off because just the way she is with her boots and her denim, and it's so fitting for her character.
And I do like the idea that she took the plane flight from Mexico, didn't bother to empty the sand out of her boots until she got into the office.
I love that. I really did think that was a great detail because then, as someone who travels a lot, like I just felt that whole day with her. You know what I mean? And I really did like that. I agree with you. I think even though Daredevil was like my favorite show, I think her interpretation and it's become iconic, like she really is that character, even more so than the character in the comic that I read. Like, you kind of like, almost like, with a lot of people, Captain America, kind of like Chris Evans became Captain America more so than what you would have thought in the comics. That's what I feel about Krysten Ritter's Jessica Jones. Like, it's what I associate with the character. If I'm reading it, that's who I hear in my head.
Absolutely.
Yeah, her character has so much of the personality, I mean, obviously you've seen her in a lot of things, but it's very reminiscent of when she was the bee in Apartment 23. Just sort of that tone for everything she says is sort of that kind of comment. And I think it's very hard to imagine seeing this character played by someone else. You can say that about all of them, but this one, it's like, well, she doesn't have a mask. She's always just her. And you can't tell her when she's superheroing versus when she's just getting drunk at the bar. Because usually she's got a drink in her hand in both places. So, she is this character, and that's why I've always liked this show. And just getting to see her... seeing her go about her business was it was refreshing, and of course taking on pro bono cases for ungrateful people. At least she hasn't learned that lesson, has she? So I thought it was great, and we see some familiar faces. We see, well, let me first talk about the new face we see. I guess secretary is the best way to describe, and here's a little behind the scenes information. I deleted my notes right before we went on, so I don't have the name of that new character, and I'll know it for our next episode. But I had it in my notes, but I don't have it now. And so I thought their interaction was great. And it's just like, and Vito, the little kid, the neighbor kid, is there talking about like, well, you don't even like her. And she has this great line of, it keeps her from getting attached, to keep a safe distance. So I think that's very telling because, things didn't end well with Marcus last season. And just in general, she seems to not want people to be too close to her. What did you think, April, of Jessica's interaction with her very loud and colorful assistant/secretary?
I liked their little sparring. Their attitudes really matched well, and she could handle her own. And I like when Jessica came in and she poured her a drink right away. She seems to really understand her.
Yeah, I thought that was very domestic. Sort of like when you see the 50s. Jillian. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, and like the old 50s sitcom. The husband comes home from work and the pipe and slippers are there. Yeah, it's like, well, here's your drink because obviously you need it. Yeah, what did you think of Jillian?
Yeah, well, that is another noir trope. The assistant that looks out for the alcoholic detective, gives them guff, but has their best interest at heart. making them a drink, you know, the partner that's the subservient that doesn't act like the subservient. So I think this show, when it's leaning into those kind of tropes, I really like it, because we know it's got the Marvel superhero filter put on top of it. But remember, this is a show about cases, about a PI that is probably going to get caught up in something over her head, and then is going to have something twist halfway through, and it's not going to be what you expected. And it's okay. It's okay to kind of lean into tropes like that, you know, when they're well done.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, you know, that I guess the nature of a Netflix show is that you always want the kind of overarching story throughout the whole thing. But I think this show would have worked, you know, and unfortunately we have to talk about it in the past tense. It would have worked as like a more episodic, you know, 22 episode, like just different cases throughout the season.
As a procedural.
Yeah, it would have worked.
You could see
it would have worked really well as a procedural. But so, you know, I think it's great to see that, you know, she's got things. Well, she's got things relatively under control at home, except that is an ugly couch. Did either of you like that couch? Because I don't.
No, it's a horrible couch.
A horrible couch. Yeah. All right.
But I love how she says, when she says "I love it" to Rebecca De Mornay's character. You know, it's like, you know, that timing is coming again.
Yeah. Which, let's talk about Trish's mom, who I was happy to see back.
Were you?
Well, she's a terrible person, but a great character.
Yes.
You know, she's a great foil for Jessica. And like the scenes with her and Trish were the ones that were harder to watch. Jessica and her were always great. Mm-hmm. So you know, I like that we saw her, and I don't know. She hadn't heard from Trish in like 24 hours.
Yeah,
and
day.
And I'm like,
that's just really funny.
Not that long. You know, you're a huge pain in the ass. Mm-hmm. I don't think she wants to talk to you. You know. 2 days even, I'm like, okay, maybe something's wrong. Mm-hmm. But like a day, she just didn't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Give us your thoughts, April, on Trish's mom.
I love the banter once again with Jessica and her. She is so obsessed with Trish. Like, I think she needed to calm it down a bit. Like you said, 24 hours is nothing. But obviously, we got to get the season rolling.
Yeah, and your thoughts, Adam, on?
Well, she's a stage mom. You know,
mm-hmm.
if you've ever heard tell of a child actor or a child model or anything like that, like, this is who that woman is. And then we see that when your child is fully grown, you don't stop being a stage mom, and that's what she is, taken to the nth degree.
She is definitely Gary Coleman's parents stealing his entire fortune.
Yes,
you know, I mean that she's just two a-hole parents wrapped up into one. Mm-hmm. So I guess jumping around a little bit, it makes sense to talk about Trish now. And I was very excited when we finally saw her, but mostly because we finally saw her in action. Because to me, from the end of season 2, I'm like, well, next season's going to have to be the Hellcat season. I don't care what anybody says. That's what I want more than anything else. Sure, it'd be nice to see Kilgrave again living in Jessica's head, but I really want Hellcat. Adam, what did you think for just the limited action that we saw in this episode?
Well, yeah, this is something that you're waiting for since season 1. As soon as they dropped that name, and I'll admit, when the first season happened, I was like, why do I know that name? Yeah. Because she's like a minor Avenger that, like, when I was reading the comics, you know, she would show up. I can't say Hellcat was a character I was ever excited about, like, reading about. But when you have that familiarity pop up on a show, you do get excited about the fact that, are we going to get Hellcat? And I would say kudos to them for letting that unravel over 3 or 2 full seasons.
Yeah.
So to have it just be introduced and not really even touch it the first season, then we see where it's going. Like, that's the great thing about these long form shows, is when they can tease these things out that the fans know are kind of coming. And now we see it. We see her in action with that classic thing they do where, yes, she's sort of in the blue and the yellow, in like the jumpsuit that teases at the colors of the classic costume without it being the classic costume. God, I just had another pang. Do you remember that one section of that first season of Iron Fist where you see the classic costume in the black and white footage, and the dude has got the 2 fists?
Yeah.
That's as good as the costume ever got on that show ever, and we never got there again, right?
Right. You see corpses in season 2 with the suit on as well, but you never get anywhere near.
You never get near it, right?
And so I would have even forgiven the yellow slippers if we had the basically the ankle up part of that costume.
Yeah.
But look, to bring it back to Jessica, we even got the bad Jessica Jones costume for like a second.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
We actually did get to see.
And what was the name? What was it? Jewel? What was the name?
I think it was Jewel.
Yes. So, do you think? So now that we've seen her, there is one cool, like, wall walking moment she has.
That up. Yeah, that's awesome.
That was really cool. Do you think that we'll get a more complete costume or a catsuit-esque kind of thing?
Well, April, why don't you answer that question first?
I was just gonna say I hope so.
Yeah.
I like how they were talking too. Like they tease it when Jessica was like, "What? So are you like a cat burglar?" Like they just a bit.
Yeah. What the hell are you?
Yeah.
A cat burglar? No, that's not what she said. Yeah, I hope, like you said, I hope that we get that. I wonder if it'll be more like, you know, in season 1 of Iron Fist, of Luke Cage, when he like puts on the laundry and he still has the headband on, and then it's like, oh my god, he's got the Luke Cage costume on for 20 seconds. So, you know, I don't know what she would be wearing. You know, why would she be wearing like that kind of leotard that's, you know, reminiscent of the color scheme of the X-Men costumes? But that's besides the point. But it would be great if there's at least a version of the mask. I think that the costume might be tough to justify, but I mean, she's well known. First of all, she was on the radio, but now she's on QVC. I mean, I know they call it something else, but let's be honest, that's QVC.
That was weird that she's like missing and then she's on TV the next day. So it's like she really what did she? She literally didn't call her mom for a day. Essentially,
which I don't know. I guess it depends on your mom. People watching, leave a comment if your mom would freak out if she didn't hear from you for 24 hours.
Well,
Sometimes
for a while,
you're just busy.
Yeah, right, exactly.
For a while, my mom could text, and I had all day, maybe to the next day, to return the text. Now mom knows. Mom's like, you don't return that text right away. Yeah. She knows, and it's changed my world.
Yeah, my mom's like that. Like if I miss a call, she's like, "Are you dying?"
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So we can imagine Trish didn't return the text to her mom that we've
really
established is the worst kind of mom.
And it probably wasn't like a 911. I'm in trouble. I need help. It was like, how are you?
Right.
And then like, I asked how you are 9 hours ago.
So after that encounter, is Jessica aware that there is some kind of like powers? Like Jessica didn't really respond to the fact that she was like doing those wall flips and stuff. Like, we didn't really get that reaction from her. So where do we think Jessica is at in terms of her? Because she stopped the procedure in season 2.
Right.
That was allegedly going to enhance Trish. Obviously, it didn't work. She did get enhanced, but is Jessica aware? Like how? I was a little surprised that she wasn't more surprised that her friend was jumping out windows. Like she was staring, but she didn't. She literally jumped out of a window, and then they just caught up with each other in the next scene. We're like, "Why did you stop there?" So
I was wondering when I was watching it. I'm like, okay, I get she's internalizing the way she feels about Trish and the fact that the relationship's at the point it's at, and also thanks for killing my mom. But I don't know. I think that. I think she might have just been like, I don't want to let on that I think that this is interesting. I'm going to have to think about it. But I was a little surprised that she didn't even make like a snide comment, you know, about like, oh, you can do that now? You know? What did you think, April?
Yeah, how do you not react to someone doing like a backflip off the wall and jumping out windows?
Adam's going to do a backflip in our next episode, and we're all going to react. We're going to definitely react.
Sticking the landings is always a problem with my flips. I tend to land on my head neck, and it's a problem.
This is, and look, I was glad that we got Trish in the first episode because I wasn't sure that we would, in all honesty, because if it's like, oh, she's missing, episode 4 maybe,
right? They're gonna milk that you're expecting.
I was just like, all right, that's okay, and I wonder where she is, and it's like, oh, she's just out hellcatting, you know, that's really all she was doing. So I look forward to more of Hellcat, regardless of what she's dressed like, and Ryan in the booth has been cycling through some of the images of Hellcat as we've seen her in the comics. So thank you for that. Another character that has returned is Gerry Hogarth, who is still alive and seems to be doing reasonably well.
Suffering from ALS.
But considering, when I guess the last time we saw her was Iron Fist season 2, and that's correct, right? Because she was like trying to. Was she trying to work with Typhoid Mary?
Yes, I think that's right.
Yeah, that's a lie. Because we didn't see her. Let's put it this way: we didn't see her in Daredevil season 3. I don't think. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. In the chat,
I don't believe so.
I don't think we did. So it had been a little while, and I was like, okay, how's she doing? And okay, getting worse, but it's like just starting to get worse now, which I think is an interesting part of the story. That we know she's starting to have the signs of ALS. And what did you think, April, about her proposal to Jessica, which is essentially, when you can see that I need to go, I'm going to need you to kill me. I just don't want to see it coming.
And I need you to poison me. I need you to slip me pills.
Yeah.
No,
by the way, that's my definition of friendship right there. Can you please kill me but not let me know?
I think that is true Hogarth fashion. She is so strong and she doesn't want to let on that she's suffering. And I just adore this character. I'm interested to see where she ends up by the end of the season, if she's going to be alive or dead.
Or good or bad. I mean, this is one of those really good morally ambiguous characters, right? Like, she seems like she's all bad, and then she does something that's good, and you just don't know where she kind of falls.
Yeah, she's very self-involved, but occasionally she is motivated by the right interests, you know?
In this episode, she talks about, you know, donating to the platinum level for this string quartet to do some good, although we find out that it wasn't to do some good.
No, it was just to get the attention of a woman who none of the three of us seem to remember. So again, I am going to lean on those of you watching this in the comments. Should we remember her from something? Because I didn't. And here's the problem with, you know, doing an after show right when something premieres. There's not a lot of people talking about it just yet, you know, so it's hard to say.
I'm going to say that we don't know her.
Okay, yeah, because
the way they set it up, you weren't supposed to know why she was really going. And then what we clearly got was that there's a lot to catch up on. So much so that lunch won't cover it. So much so that Hogarth, who is a lesbian, was taken aback by the fact that this woman who was putting on, she wasn't performing, right? She was just...
Oh, I think she was performing.
Was she performing?
Okay. She on the violin?
Right, because they said great recital. So this woman who's performing has a husband there, and they're trying to raise money, too. So...
And she seemed taken aback by the fact that this woman had a husband.
Yes. So that's at least what I think we're meant to believe at this point, is that there is perhaps a romantic history. And it doesn't seem like it was left totally on awful terms, because they do seem sort of happy to see each other.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where I was at with that, and you know, but as with anything, there was a nagging like, am I forgetting somebody? You know, but that was at first I didn't think anything of it. Yeah.
Also, because what I've experienced is because we've had such a great interconnected Marvel mini universe. I started thinking, wait, were you on Punisher season 2? She reminded me of the woman that was the mother of the guy that the Bullseye character dated for a while. Like, I was
the raspy voiced woman.
Okay. Raspy, the one who talks like my daughter. Stay away from my daughter. Yeah. But it wasn't her. It wasn't her. I'm like, but I'm just saying, like, I was starting to get confused because we do have these characters that show up,
and there's a lot of characters.
There's a lot of characters.
You know, it can be hard to keep track. So. We had all of those things. Let's talk about Marcus's storyline, which I found to actually be very interesting. Marcus, as we knew, working for Hogarth, and he's basically, well, he's a reverse of you, Adam. He comes in and fixes situations and makes them better instead of going on panels for shows that you demand to be canceled prematurely after one episode aired.
Is it Malcolm or Marcus? I'm getting Malcolm.
It's
on
Malcolm.
IMDb.
What did I say?
Marcus.
I said Marcus.
It's okay.
No, you're right. It's Malcolm.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, Marcus we love too, but he's apparently not a character on the show.
He's great,
Malcolm,
though.
I'm glad you corrected me on that. Again, if only somebody hadn't deleted his notes. Had the notes about Malcolm's storyline. Let's start with you, April. What did you think throughout, basically his storyline as a whole throughout the episode?
He seems to be damn good at his job in the beginning, which I thought was really awesome. But you find out that he's not happy doing what he's doing. He's disgruntled. And I think we're going to see a lot of interesting things from him involving his job later on.
Yeah, the idea that his job is to help a drunk driver keep driving drunk. You know, it's the culmination of like, this isn't really what I wanted to do. I wanted to be kind of an investigator, not the wolf from Pulp Fiction, for guys who, could be getting DUIs. What'd you think, Adam?
I think this character is not long for this world.
Whoa, Malcolm!
I feel like Malcolm might be set up for an emotional, important death.
Wow.
Just because when you see a character do something that is so dark and like a real, like, what he does in this episode is pretty unforgivable. It's a very serious crime.
Right.
And it's like, it's like almost like not quite Punisher level, but, he basically attacks the drunk driver ends his career potentially because in his mind that's the right thing to do rather than calling a cop or reporting it. Like, so I don't know. I was just like, that is pretty heavy what he just did. So there's some kind of serious turn, either a heel turn or a redeemable death. I feel like could be happening for him.
You know, I hadn't thought about it. I figured, of course, there would be consequences because he's decided that yes, this is what my job is, but I'm only going to feel good about myself if I do the opposite of my job, which is
And do you think this is the beginning, or I mean, do you think this is the last thing he's going to do in that?
No, of course not.
Right.
I think
it's only the beginning.
Yeah, this is just the guy who we knew from this episode. So
who started as a junkie, right?
Yep.
So he was a guy who's had this great arc, and he worked for Jessica last season.
Yes.
And then felt like, what was it, April? We were saying, like, what was his big problem that he had with Jessica? Like, he didn't like what he was doing, or wasn't getting paid enough.
He wasn't appreciated.
He was not appreciated at all, and I think Jessica was too comfortable in how dismissive she was of him, and he worked really hard to help her, and so I think that's obviously that was why he left.
So he goes to work for Hogarth, who still he's sort of unappreciated, or he's doing things he's not comfortable with, probably getting paid a lot better though than Alias Investigations
yes
pays.
I would say so.
But he's also not happy, and they've sort of intimated that he wants to start his own competing PI. So now he's potentially going to be a competing PI with Jessica, and we know he's got some dark methods. So very interesting groundwork being laid in just the first episode for this character.
Yeah, which I don't know what I was expecting from him this season, but I thought, the fact that we actually see, so this guy's a baseball player, and, there's always... people don't want to license logos and anything, so some made-up baseball team, which is it's like, really, that's
he's
their
Ray
uniform?
Donovan. He's Ray Donovan-ing things.
Right, yeah. And so whatever he does, I hope he gets to do it for a few more episodes, because I think it'll be interesting to see, this character. Not basically. He's taking the law into his own hands because he I don't know. I guess he has a conscience.
Right, and I can see that being set up as a sort of mirror to like, well, Jessica, how is it any different than when you do? When you use your powers and you're throwing people around on the beach, you're a PI. It's like that flip side, that classic, I'm just like you, you're nothing like me kind of thing.
We have that going on with Jessica, Trish, Malcolm, all where they're like skewing the scale on what's good, and they're trying to decide what's right and wrong, and it's not black and white.
Yeah, and Jessica admittedly has started to give a shit, according to her words, and like doesn't want to, but she does. She's got a moral compass. She's the one that does, despite the fact that Trish's mother tells Jessica that Trish was Jessica's moral compass, and wow, you're not the same without her.
Right. Yeah, I thought that that juxtaposition was great, because you have Trish's mother saying that, and you have Jessica, just going right in and reading Trish's email to her, and then throwing it back in her face. But when you're, they seem to consider themselves sisters. They were that close, obviously, earlier in the series. So I guess I guess that goes with the territory. But I think that you're absolutely right. There's a lot of gray area that all these characters are operating in, and I think it's not a good recipe for a happy life. I hadn't even thought about Malcolm dying until you said it. Now all I can think of, like, I hope we get a couple more episodes of him. Because I don't know how long he is for the world.
I think if it does happen, it would be like middle of the season.
Yeah,
like there's always that like big turn, something big has to happen and switches things. I know the episode ends with Jessica saying
go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, she gets got.
Yeah.
She gets stabbed right after. Oh, so, she's about to do two of my literal favorite things on the planet Earth, right? Sex and hamburgers. I don't know. You could flip the order of those things being my favorite on any given day.
The order's relative.
The order is totally relative.
Depends on the partner, depends on the burger.
Totally.
As to which one goes first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So these things get interrupted in what is essentially like the inciting incident for like the season. Someone's coming after Jessica. She's bleeding out on the floor. Malcolm comes out to see her, and her last thought is, get the bad guy, and she goes down.
Which I thought was great, because she's still focused on that, and it's the reason why I was surprised by that. One, I didn't see it coming, but I didn't think that you could stab her like that and have it stop her in the way that it did.
I didn't think so either.
I thought that she was, well, I thought she was stronger than that, in all honesty. You know, I didn't think she was Luke Cage, where the knife was going to break. But, I mean, she couldn't, you know, she's like crawling down the hallway. And, you know, I mean, look, they definitely, like you said, they got her. They got her good. But, so I was like, wow, it was more gruesome than I expected, because I didn't think that you could do that to her.
And I think that's what it was. It was just, even though she is tough and it's probably harder to break her bones, and she's way strong, when you lose blood, I don't, you know, it almost seems like even if you could get to Luke Cage's blood and empty that much blood out of him, right, you wouldn't be able to puncture Luke Cage, but Jessica isn't puncture proof, and she just lost a ton of blood, so that's why I think she lost consciousness. But maybe she needs to armor up and put on a better outfit, like the old outfit again.
Right, exactly.
She needs a little protection.
The jewel outfit. So I was glad to see Malcolm to the rescue there, because there was the awkward exchange earlier in the episode when you know, he was having the dinner party, and it's like, oh yeah, this is Jessica. Oh yeah, from down the hall. Like, not any knowledge of like, oh, you guys were friends and worked together. It's just like, oh yeah, so that's that lady that lives in our building.
And Malcolm has a nice sort of upscale girlfriend. It looked like he was who works for Hogarth. Did we see it was also working for Hogarth? So she was a lawyer too.
Yeah. So good to see. Look, I think we want to see Malcolm happy, and we'll see if we get to see that for 13 episodes or only 5. But that's why these shows are great, because of just how quickly you can go on to the next one, which you know, we'll all do momentarily, and we hope you all join us after episode 2 for our episode 2, which will already be available by the time you're watching this. You'll already be able to see our second episode. So we'll have plenty more to talk about season 3 specific as we go along, but we wanted to take a moment and do a top 3 here. This is, look at that, our top 3 Marvel Netflix villains. I think we need to be very specific with that, because if we open it up to Netflix, that's a lot of shows. If you open up to Marvel, that's movies and comics, and you know, we'll be here all day. So no Galactus on this list, all right? So anybody cross that out. If it's not a Marvel Netflix villain, they are not on our list. I'll take number 3, who we decided as a panel was Cottonmouth from season 1 of Luke Cage. I don't know, I found that he was the perfect adversary for Luke. Played by Mahershala Ali, of course.
The great Mahershala Ali.
Is he two-time Academy Award?
Two-time Academy, and I thought that at the Oscars. It's like, yeah, 2-time Academy Awards, but to me, you're always Cottonmouth. You know?
Crushes True Detective, too.
Right,
yeah, exactly. Great old man work as a True Detective.
What fantastic casting, and I don't know, I think that he's a great villain. You know, he's perfect for Luke, and that season and the series as a whole lost something for me when he wasn't around anymore. I thought that this was going to be like the Kingpin, and we were going to have, you know, Cottonmouth for multiple seasons. Of course, then we only got 2 seasons.
He was almost like a scapegoat the way they used him. Like he was like the red herring villain, and then they kind of surprised us. Who actually became the big villain. But you're right, because he's so incredible. It was that thing. It was almost that David Tennant effect again, that you just feel a vacuum when he's not on the show. And also, what was the snake guy that actually
the season 2?
No, the actual season 1 that he fights at the end. It was like becomes all amped up.
Oh, Diamondback.
Diamondback. Yeah. He comes in and he's playing it really corny and really over the top. It didn't seem like it was a fair replacement for that kind of villain.
I definitely agree.
Felt like a downgrade.
Speaking of David Tennant, April, talk about our number 2.
Ooh, look how we did it now.
So smooth.
Thank you.
Kilgrave.
Yeah.
David Tennant is fantastic. I absolutely adored his character. And I did feel like season 2 lost a little spark when he was no longer with us.
We only had the 1 episode with him in season 2.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy... I was interested in seeing it because I was a fairly recent Doctor Who person because of the new ones that he was in the Russell T Davies.
Right.
And And I was like, well, I just got to see this guy again. And now that's why I've announced him as my man crush, because now I've seen him in like 4 things, and he's always
everywhere.
that good. He's the most charismatic person.
And you mentioned Good Omens, this show,
Broadchurch,
yes. And Doctor East couldn't be more different on those shows. And look, there's a lot of actors that sometimes you get the Vince Vaughn effect where it's the same character and everything.
Oh no! He much better. I like him much better. So yeah, great villain, and also a sympathetic villain. Like there was even an episode in that first season where they were working together, and you're like, are they gonna work it out?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And when we get his backstory, we see him as a kid. Like that is the perfect, well-defined adversary for a superhero, and he was perfect in it. And I loved that we even see the purple scarf there.
Yeah.
We got the hints he had purple suits on. Yeah. So they didn't. It's good that they didn't do him in purple face.
No.
I think that would have been very offensive to purple people.
Yeah, not in 2017 or whatever that was. You just can't do it anymore.
We don't get to do purple face anymore.
But the number one best Netflix villain, we all agreed, and I think a lot of people agreed. This one, I think you could almost throw out there into the pool with the cinematic universe and everything else.
Yeah.
That's how good this incredible actor, Vincent D'Onofrio, brought the Kingpin to life.
Yeah.
In also a sympathetic way, and with a very interesting take and voice and character ticks, and yet makes it believable that he can be a physical equal to Daredevil, and is also so menacing. I mean, tour de force. I don't know what else you say.
No, I mean, you want to talk about actors who are great whenever you see them in anything, going back to Full Metal Jacket.
Yes.
And he's always fantastic.
It's very much like a Private Pile kind of performance. Like he's a man baby.
This isn't like the idea of like I'm doing a superhero villain, and you feel like he took it just as seriously as if he sat down and was gonna play Abraham Lincoln. You know what I mean? He's like, no, this is important that I get this right. And you want to talk about characters that I don't want to see played by anyone else. The Wilson Fisk as portrayed by Vincent D'Onofrio. And, that's one of the disappointing things about not getting...
Although Liev Schreiber's, super wide...
Into the Spider-Verse, that was a great... That's what I like about that, too, is that that's a different take, I agree on all of those. Obviously, that was our panel. Now, we had some honorable mentions. Why don't you give an honorable mention, April?
Going back to Daredevil Season 3, Bullseye was fantastic.
Agreed.
I loved watching him slowly unravel, and listening to all the therapist discussions was so good. I loved the final fight scene with him.
The scene in the church. There were so many. When he's pretending to be Daredevil. There were so many great things from old Dex.
Yeah, was it okay? Yeah, that with the office and the pencils and the things.
That's so good.
Not since Colin Farrell did you ever think that you could make this character so terrifying. It really was like you felt the suspense for Daredevil. That scene, I mean, and so many of again across the board for the Marvel Netflix, the action, the stunts, the choreography is been on another level. Particularly, I think with the Daredevil show.
Yes, absolutely.
I just wanted to give one shout out also to Bushmaster from season 2 of Luke Cage, mostly for that just one Cyclone Guile Street Fighter 2 kick he gives him on the bridge, where he just kicks him in the face and he has no idea what happened. And that was a great, also really sympathetic character too.
Yeah, I agree, and we'll have to. Unfortunately, we'll have to look at the Netflix Marvel universe as a whole throughout the course of this season of Jessica Jones, because this is the final entry. But if you keep an eye on all the things out there, it seems like Marvel's doing a good job building a little Hulu universe with Ghost Rider and Hellstrom, and also some animated series, and some other things that you hear. They also have Runaways on Hulu, and basically the reruns of Cloak and Dagger from Freeform. So I think, it's a very different space. This is the sort of Hell's Kitchen / Harlem heroes, and then this is going to be sort of a little bit more of a supernatural, Ghost Rider sort of feel. So I think it's great because there's so many different kinds of stories that you can tell in the Marvel universe. But we will be back to talk about episode 2 of Jessica Jones. Like I said, you'll find it right where you found this one. But until then, April, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at April13Dawn.
And Adam, where can people find you?
You can find me at Adam Gertler on those same platforms.
And you can find me at Christian DMZ on those platforms. Don't look for me on the old platforms. I'm not on Friendster or MySpace. Anyway, that's all the time we have for now, but we will see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.